I think one of the biggest lies in guitar education is the idea that if you're confused, it means you're behind. Like somehow if guitar feels hard, it must be your fault. But honestly, the instrument itself is kind of a disaster. No, it is a total disaster. A beautiful disaster. 311 song, I believe. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, guitar is one of the most visually confusing instruments to learn, especially compared to piano. And if no one explains why it's confusing, you end up thinking you're the problem. So today I want to talk about why guitar feels like such a hot mess. And more importantly, how to actually think about it in a way that makes sense. So welcome to Mr. Elmer's Music Lab, the podcast, episode 12. Let's go.
Mr. Elmer's Music Lab.
So like a piano, you can go over one note equals one key, right? So you just go over, you find the key, you find the note. Like I'm thinking back to even when I was a little kid, I started taking piano from my mom. And we always know where middle C is. Even people that don't play the piano, somewhere in their schooling or whatever, they've heard the term middle C, and you can go over, it's right in the middle of the piano. Well, guitar doesn't have that. It's a total disaster. Everything is linear and visible on a piano. It's very repetitive. It just makes sense. So many white keys, so many black keys, it just repeats. Either higher or lower, right? Depending where you start. So guitar, same notes exist in multiple places. Same scale appears in many shapes. There's no obvious visual center. The theory feels totally hidden, right? Like, where's middle C on the guitar? Right? And on a piano, theory is sitting right in front of you. On guitar, theory feels hidden, right? Piano, because it's visually so easy to kind of sink in and start understanding and breaking down, the theory almost happens just indirectly as you're learning the instrument. On a guitar, it's not the case. And I can see why, as much as I push music theory in here, and I always will, why people like get sick and don't want to hear about any music theory on the guitar. So that's why, why beginners feel overwhelmed. The guitar is already technically really hard, right? And if you're on an instrument like an acoustic, which is harder to play than electric, you've got the technical side. You've got the part of you're trying to learn and you're collecting way too much information, right? So, and then with the visual part makes it even that much harder, right? This is why players become shape dependent forever. Okay, we're going to move through this and you're going to see how this all connects. Again, if any of this resonates with you, definitely drop a comment. It'd be fun to get enough comments and I'll make a video out of the comments. We're all the same, people. So let's go to kind of section 2. Standard tuning makes it worse, right? The instrument itself is not symmetrical. So let's think about this. Now, when I started playing guitar, I didn't give this much thought. And then when I hit a certain few things called octaves was my light bulb moment about why the tuning of a guitar was so tricky. So if you think about it, E, A, D, G are tuned in fourths, right? The interval, the distance from what, and G and B, G to B, the G string to the B string totally breaks that system with a major third interval. So, and then when you go from the B to the high, it returns it to fourths again. It's so all of a sudden, everything, you're kind of making sense of it, right? Whether you're learning scales, chords, triads, whatever you're learning. And then that tuning just throws it all off. Now, if I loop back to my octave story, I don't know how much you use octaves when you're playing it, but I use them a ton. And if you're not, you should. But when you're playing your octaves, you play on low E and you skip the A string and play the D for the octave, and it's 2 frets up, right? And then you do a root note on the A and skip, the next string and go 2 frets up. But as soon as you hit that other string, because of that tuning, then you got to move that pinky 3 frets up. So then it just throws everything off, right? So just when your break thinks it found the pattern, the B string shows up and ruins your life, all right? Somebody should put that on a t-shirt. Maybe on here we'll put the B string ruined my life. But then again, it's going to make your life amazing. That's why guitar feels so hard, right? As soon as you feel like you start to understand everything, you're collecting way too much information. Sometimes the diagrams make it worse, right? And I'm trying to make you guys really nice diagrams. If you've never seen any of the instructional videos on here, I make these beautiful charts, but again, we just have to be patient. Guitar is really hard. I will never lie. It's a hot disaster of a mess, but a beautiful one, of course. So if we go to section 3, most players are taught survival, not understanding, right? So the more understanding you have, the better, right? People memorize shapes, not music. So learn this shape, memorize this scale box, use this strum pattern, repeat. But there's no building of systems going on. And really, all these podcasts, I think they've been so amazing because it's forcing us all to sit down without the instrument in our hands and really think about the psychological side of music, the mental aspect. You've got to put some deep thought into this. You got to have that growth mindset. So guitar being hard and not making sense, it makes it so much tougher. And if you don't build your musical pillars, your tiny little systems, it's going to be really hard to progress. You're going to hit that intermediate plateau, which I think is the longest plateau, or can be the longest plateau in all of music. It seems to be, in my experience, and just dealing with a ton of you guys on the channel and all my students I've taught over the years and people I've worked with in discussions. So what you got to do is just start building those systems and start building your mental systems too of how you're going to do that. You know, I've even had on this channel, here's a perfect example. I've done a few musical shorts on here, and I have a couple of acoustics. Now, normally you have your fret markers. Like, you know, when you're learning just the visual layout of a guitar, you got the dots, like the inlays, whatever kind of guitar it is. You know, you got birds for PRSs. You got the blocks for Gibsons. You know, you've got different types of fret markers. So I got these two acoustics, and for some reason, instead of just having two dots on the 12th fret, which is more standard, you know, you have one dot, 3rd, 5th, 7th, right? 9th, 12th has two. Well, a couple of my acoustics, it has two dots on the 7th fret as well. And it's actually confused quite a few people on the channel. Like, I was so confused. Again, this is what I'm talking about. That's why we got to have that growth mindset. So like nobody's asking like, why? What is this? How does this connect? What am I hearing? You almost got to go back to the basics of when you were a little kid in school, like all the questions your teacher is always asking those informal questions to kind of assess where you are in your learning process. You got to do that for yourself. A lot of players don't learn music, they learn survival patterns, right? That's why most people do quit the guitar in the first year, because they're just trying to survive. They're not learning music. They're collecting. They're not building systems. And a lot of times it's not the fault of it. And then you add in the fact that guitar just doesn't make sense when you look at it. So that's why the intermediate plateau seems to be the longest, the most broad. I mean, we could sit here and I could ask you, where would you rate yourself right now? Go ahead and put it in the comments too. Like, where would you rate yourself as a player? Would you be beginner, intermediate, or advanced? And again, that's a very broad stroke question. But this is why a lot of players feel stuck in that intermediate plateau, because endless content will just create more confusion. And if you're still looking at the guitar, trying to make sense of it visually, and then see how everything goes onto the roadmap known as the fretboard, it can get really, really out of control. So let's move on to section 4. But again, just drop in the comments, where are you? Are you more of a beginner, intermediate, advanced? And yeah, it's kind of hard to self-assess yourself at times, but I think a lot of you guys can kind of figure it out, you know. All right, so section 4, practicing more isn't the answer, right? More reps of confusion does not create clarity. So if you're like super confused and you're just piling on, you're just going to add to that confusion. It's like a car pileup on the freeway, right? It's more of a disaster. So you think, players think, I just need more hours. But they often need more organization, better framework, stronger connections. And that's going to be a part we go into in a minute. And I just did a whole video on connecting things. That is so important, right? You cannot out-practice disorganization. So let's say that again. Think, is this you? You cannot out-practice disorganization, right? And we're all going to have our opinions on how much time you must practice to play the guitar, right? And yes, I was a maniac. My first 2 years, I've said this before, you can validate it with my family. I practiced like 6 to 8 hours every single day, and I had a calendar, and I didn't miss a day. I was crazy. Don't do that, because I didn't have systems, so I probably could have done it in a much more efficient manner. So like, if you're a disciplined player and you're still plateauing, your frustration is going to turn into guilt. And then that's why you're going to think you don't have talent but it's not your fault. You just don't have your systems in place, which is why you got to come to this channel. That's what I'm trying to help you do. So if you just landed here on this podcast, we do all the mental talks, we do the lessons, we hit it from every angle, and we're always trying to progress. I'm always trying new things on here. I just want to help you. I'm just like you. Listen, we're all the same. We just want to get better at this beautiful hot mess called guitar, beautiful disaster called guitar. So again, just don't stress, don't get frustrated. Let's just keep working together, and we'll put your systems in place, and you'll see you'll progress quickly. So let's go to like the fifth section I'm thinking here. So this is the biggest one. Connection changes everything. And I just did a few recent videos on how to connect our ideas, our information, our thoughts. Because the word connection applies to every single thing in life, really, and every musical aspect. The breakthrough is not more information, it is connection. So what do I mean? Connecting chords to scales. I just did a huge one on that. Now, I'm always going to say this because this is the truth. There is no arguing this. Rhythm is king, rhythm is queen for now and forever. In the world of music, everything in life is rhythm. Everything's about rhythm. So if you don't have that, you don't have anything. So that's what connection is. It's connecting chords to scales, which means connecting it all using rhythm as your foundation. That's the foundation to your musical house. Like, again, connecting rhythm to lead playing. How many of you right now, I already know because I did a poll and I got like hundreds of responses. How many of you are struggling connecting your rhythm to lead playing or chords to melody, like you fall apart rhythmically when you go back and forth? And here, again, it's just because you don't have simple systems in place to build off of. Got to walk before you can run. Connecting, like I just said, connecting melody to harmony, connecting triads to songs. Now, for those of you that have been here, drop it in the comments, preach it. Triads are kind of like my Bible of music. They are everything. They are the glue, the spine. So that's what we're trying to do here is build these systems so you're not visually overwhelmed by the guitar. Or as we get new people to this lovely channel that we've built together, we can encourage them to not give up. So connecting sound to visual understanding and to the mental understanding, you have to think about it. Somebody on here just yesterday put a comment about like one thing that overwhelms them the most is thinking too much when they're playing, right? You got to think, but also you got to free flow. So great players are not thinking more, they're seeing more connections. And that's what we're going to strive for here. And this applies to the whole visual thing. You're going to have, listen, when you're a musician or if you're a human, you're just learning in life. Everything is just a series of light bulb moments, which means learning moments. You go, oh, I see this, I get that. That's when you're making those connections, whether it be visually or the actual playing part. Could just be when you're walking your dog out, hanging out with the family, and you just have a random thought about music and bing, it happens all the time. But that's what makes it amazing, and I think that's what keeps us coming back. Like, we'll call those the aha moments, whatever you want to term that phrase, light bulb moments, aha moments. So this is why understanding feels like a relief, because, when you're struggling and something finally clicks, it is a big relief. All right, so let's kind of bookend this with kind of like one of my just whole kind of musical philosophy, why triads, rhythm, voice leading matters so much in music. So I've done a bunch of videos on this. You guys that have been here, and if you haven't, I'm going to melt your brain talking about triads, but you will thank me for it later. Many of you are thanking me for it now, and I'm thanking myself. Small systems create clarity. One of the best things that ever happened for me was creating this channel because it forces me to be accountable for everyone on the channel, including myself, because I want to do my best and deliver the best content I can. Hate calling music content, but you guys know what I mean. So triads are like the smallest complete unit of harmony. Like when you start breaking down the guitar neck into small chunks called triads, then it starts to visually connect better too. Then that total hot mess called guitar starts to become a little bit more of a beautiful mess. It will always be a mess, let's face it. Rhythm is the real game, right? Voice leading. It's kind of how music actually moves. I just did a video on that. Fewer ideas understood deeply always is more important than endless shapes. Do not, once again, all these podcasts have connected pretty well too. Do not just become a collector. You're not collecting more songs. You're not collecting more shapes. You're not collecting more scales. You're collecting nothing. You're just bearing down. You're buckling down, and you're going deeper with smaller ideas. That's how you get better. Okay, quicker. The goal is not more shapes. The goal is fewer ideas understood deeply. So, one more time, the goal isn't more shapes, the goal is fewer ideas understood deeply. So, triads, I told you they changed my teaching, and I'm going to keep talking about them forever. And I'm always going to say rhythm is king, rhythm is queen. We're going to tie in the muting aspect. We're going to talk about how voice leading reveals the fretboard. We're going to build our small systems that make us get better and better every single day. Some days we're going to advance quicker than others, just like growing this YouTube channel. Some days it grows faster than others, but it's always growing. Just that's what we want. So what we're going to do is keep working together. Remember, you're not bad at guitar. You are not behind. You are not broken. The instrument is difficult. I will always preach the truth. I will never sugarcoat anything, okay? My whole goal on here is to help all of us, including myself, become the best versions of ourselves. That is the true ultimate goal. And the cool part, as much of a disaster as guitar is, it is the best instrument in the world, in my opinion. Now, I am learning drums. I'm learning piano. I play many instruments, but this is my lane. This is my love. I love all these little beautiful guitars back here, and everyone is to do one thing. That's to make music, right? So the problem is, many of us were just never shown how to organize it. That's all we're going to try and do, okay? So it just hasn't been explained to a lot of people in a way that makes sense. So I promise you, if you stick around here, it's going to click. So let's just keep this thing rolling. Drop jellyfish or your favorite sea creature in the comments. Definitely tell us where you're watching from. That's one of the coolest parts is we're all over the world. We're all over the world, right? Haven't had anyone drop a comment from Mars yet, but maybe one day. All right, if this episode hit home for you, drop me a comment. Tell me what part of the guitar has felt the most confusing for you. Because chances are, if you've struggled with it, a lot of other players have too. We're all in this together. All right, remember what I always say, only you can stop you. So just don't stop. See you in the next episode. Peace.